I'm going to show you how to prepare your fabric to make logo fabric from it. So this piece has already been prepared for you. This was the fabric that I chose to make my logo, and I ironed on this interfacing so that it's a little stiffer and it's ready to go to cut out my logo shape. I can draw on the wrong side here and then cut it out. If you don't have fabric that is already interfaced, I'm going to quickly show you how to do that yourself. You have found your piece of fabric that you like. It's a little wrinkly. You should start with just a quick press to get rid of the wrinkles so that it's flat. Then you will be given some interfacing, or you'll be shown where it is. What you need to do is, interfacing has a glue side to it and then a flat side. You need to kind of position it on top of your fabric and cut it down to size so that it's just a little bit smaller than the fabric it will be ironed onto. Notice that there is a black border around here so that this is a little bit smaller than the fabric it will be ironed onto. The reason for that is if this interfacing was bigger and I started to iron it on, it would actually, the glue would start to melt and it would start to stick to the actual ironing board, and we don't want that to happen. So trim it a little smaller. Make sure your glue is face down on your fabric, and I will show you how to determine which side has the glue. You can feel it, you can see it too, it's kind of shiny. Then go ahead and place the iron on and take your time. The glue needs about 20 seconds to completely heat up and melt and bond to the fabric, so don't rush this procedure. I usually hold it for about 10 seconds without moving it at all, and then I sort of slowly count to 10 in my head. Once I've counted to 10, I start to wiggle and count for another 10 seconds. Once you have finished that first area, you can go ahead and check it, move to the next section, and same thing. Hold, count to 10 slowly in your head. That's how you prepare your fabric to make it logo ready. When you're designing your logo, you need to keep a few things in mind. The first thing to remember is that you only have this amount of space to work with to fit your logo. I always fold down this top edge. This was folded down 2.5 centimeters, and I pin it in place to remind students that this is going to be the casing where the drawstring will go for your bag, and so therefore your logo cannot creep into that area. So this right here is your design area. Remember, you're going to be sewing both sides of the bag to other pieces, so you're going to lose that much seam allowance on each side, approximately 1 centimeter. So, you know, you're within a frame that is losing 1 centimeter on each side, 2.5 at the top. So here is your design space that you can work with. You'll be given half pages to come up with your design plans on. You can just, reuse, throw them out, cut, paste, start drawing and designing, but come up with a design that you want to incorporate to make a logo for your bag. I've chosen to do 2 letters here because these are typically very popular. A lot of people like to do letters, they like to do words. So I've chosen to do 2. And the most important thing I want to point out is, you can see as I was designing, I realized I was making them too big, and so I scaled them down a little bit. So I scaled it down, and now it is the size that it is. One important thing to note about logo design is that you need to make sure, especially if you're doing letters or numbers, they need to be wide enough so that when you do your zigzag stitch, just like you did on your applique sample, it doesn't completely eat up the whole letter. Sometimes people make a lot of letters because they want to fit lots of things on here. The letters end up being very skinny, and by the time they have zigzagged around all of these edges, they've eaten up all the fabric with this zigzag stitch. So keep them fat, keep them big, keep them simple, okay? I've also chosen this style because I want to show to you that when you design your letters, once you've come up with your design or whatever logo it is that you choose to do, check with me before you start to actually trace it onto your fabric. So do it on paper first, cut it out using paper scissors, then you're going to go ahead and start to trace it onto your actual logo fabric. I've cut out my 2 logo pieces, which are my 2 letters, And I'm going to start to trace them onto my logo fabric to get them ready. So as you can see, there's nothing wrong with overlapping pieces if that's what you'd like to do for your logo. If they are bigger and you want them to kind of fall on top of each other, that's okay. Having them this far out is not okay because, as I said earlier, you're going to lose seam allowance, and so you'll cut off the edge of the letter if you place it all the way out to the edge. So they need to stay within that framework that we've already discussed. To trace your letters, because the letter K has a right way and a wrong way, you want to actually make sure you trace it the wrong way. Remember, this is not the side of the fabric that will be facing outward on your bag. When you trace it inside out so that when you cut it out and flip it, it will be the correct way. So, tracing backwards, placing the letter K backwards onto your logo fabric, and then just taking your tracing chalk, give it a quick trace. So this looks like a backwards letter K, that's correct. Remember, when you cut it out and you flip it around, it will be a perfect letter K. If you have pieces that are not directional, if you're doing a square, a circle, a letter T, like a capital letter T, where it's the same both ways, there's no inside out, right side out, you don't have to worry about this. So go ahead and trace all your logo pieces the same way, get them all ready to go. If you got this backwards, if you traced it like this by accident, flip it over, you can still reuse this fabric. Grab a different color of tracing chalk and just trace it the correct way. So check with your teacher before you cut, just to be certain. I went ahead and finished tracing and cutting out my pattern pieces for my logo. And as you can see, now you can understand what it means to flip them over and have them the right way. But now I flip it over, so my good fabric is facing up, and I can see how suddenly it comes together and makes the right shape. So hold on to your scraps. Unless they're really, really tiny, something like this is not worth keeping.